This is Sacred Psoas event at Balancing Energy in Dallas, Texas. Start with reciprocal relaxation, which is a reflex of your spine that when an agonist engages, the antagonist releases. So when I contract my bicep, my tricep is soft. When I contract my tricep, my bicep is soft. When I contract my quadricep, my hamstring loosens. When I contract my abdominals, my back lets go. When I contract my diaphragm, my belly lets go. If I pull my tongue down, the muscles that are pulling my tongue up let go. You get it? It's reciprocal relaxation reflex. That's the general theory that we're going to be working with to create space. SI pain, my dad has 3 spinal fusions, and then he has 3 ruptured discs. And then this spinal electrode that is implanted to shock him so he doesn't feel the pain as much, and he can sleep. And so he does this thing where he'll lay on his back with his legs up, and he'll go to the side beyond his strength. So he could not take himself back up. He'll go so far that he couldn't get himself back up until it pops. And then he'll go to the other side. That's how he wakes up in the morning. That's, he has like this whole hour routine he does. That's one of the things that's making it worse. It gives a temporary relief, but it will keep like a geological fault. It will keep offsetting the SI the more he does that every morning. And one day it's going to pop, and then it'll feel good, and then 2 hours later he'll be walking to the kitchen and it'll go out. And that's happened to me, and your legs give out from under you. And that's no good. You've got to resist the urge to forcibly pop the SI joint, the low back. So today we will distinguish the SI joint from the lower back. They're not the same thing. But the spine is your neck, cervical, your thoracic that has ribs, the lumbar below the ribs, above the pelvis, and then the sacrum, which also has the coccyx, but they're fused. And so the sacrum and coccyx is fused. Now that just goes right down the middle of the pelvis. The sacrum is like this upside down triangle bone in between the left and right pelvis. That's the spine, but it's fused, And on either side, you see the lines on either side, that's the joint. The joint, that's not a fusion. So where everybody see that upside down triangle in the middle of the pelvis? Mm-hmm. The line on either side of it that delineates it from the pelvic bone, on either side, that's the left SI and the right SI. SI stands for sacroiliac, sacrum, ilium. Ilium is the pelvis. So sacrum, ilium joint, the left and right. Okay? So you could probably see from this image that has the psoas. On the right image is the psoas. The left image is iliacus and quadratus lumborum, which are just names for those muscles. If that muscle contracts, it's going to affect the SI joint. It's going to create a little bit of torque or shear stress. If the left side is contracted more than the right, or if it's shortened more than the right because of lack of mobility, let's say you just sit like this for years, or if you drive a lot and you're always doing this with the right leg and the left leg's not moving, the right psoas is going to get exercised differently. And so if you have short on one side, longer on the other side, that will create a rotation and all kinds of things. It's complicated because there's a lot of tissue there. But it will create imbalance, not symmetry, asymmetry, right? So there's a lot of muscles around the pelvis. So when we talk about like storing in the pelvis, that rings so true to me, and I reduce it even more and say there's storage in this muscle and that muscle and this muscle and that muscle. That in my ethos, the muscle does not contract on its own volition. Unless there's an external stimuli, it's contracting because your mind is telling it to contract. Mm-hmm. There is no tongue stuck on the roof of your mouth right now because there's not a thought associated with that. You're thinking, there's a storyline that you're thinking right now while I'm talking to you, and that's causing your tongue to clench. Let go of your tongue, and you'll stop thinking in the subconscious a little bit. Let go of the unconscious clenching in your body, and more attention units open up. And I think of the mind, you only have a finite amount of attention that you can give. And some of that attention is being pent up in unconscious muscle clenching. So when we say it's storing in the hips, there's all kinds of muscles on the left and the right and the inside and the back and deep in, and on the, I'll show you a picture later, there's layers of muscles, a whole bunch. And a lot of them are just contracting, which is holding onto a sentence, holding onto a thought or a picture. And then other muscles want to contract because the fascia sends the electrical signal. The fascia is like the connective tissue that ensheathes the muscle. It's like a burlap sack. Basically, when a muscle contracts, it will cause some local muscles to that muscle also to contract. And so a single muscle tensing will create other tensions around. And then it becomes the whole joint is tense or whatever. We'll start to loosen up the joint of the hip and the SI and the lower back. the lower back is multiple joints, obviously, each disc is a joint, by contracting a muscle on one side of it, and then loosening, and then contracting the other side, and then loosening, and then the inside, and then the outside. And when we cover all angles with just little contractions and then let it go, we'll end up creating looseness and space. So this is sacred psoas. The upper body segment of this kind of method is called the heart seal. It's basically the same method, it's just muscles for the shoulder girdle. And then we talk about like how that shallow breath, the muscles harden around a not fully expanding rib cage. And so then the deeper breaths, you got to fight that resistance. Like when I teach in handstands, if you have tension in your forearm, that will pull you out of a handstand. You got to have open wrists, right? And if you have tension around your chest, that will pull you out of an inhale. That'll, and so on. Tension pulls you out of it. I had one lady that at the end of class, I do a little recap, and I'm like, how was it for you? And she was like, at the 5-minute mark, you showed us that isolation, and my SI went, my sciatica went away, and ever since then, I've just like been in bliss. Like I'm doing what you say, but I've been kind of distracted by the fact that I don't have my SI pains from minute number 5. And so that's wonderful. That's like really fast fix. Now that's how I talked my dad, our retired Army Ranger, into doing yoga, because I just put a block between his legs and I said, squeeze, internally rotate, lift your hips, lean against the wall. SI popped back into place, and I told him, this is what I do. Like I'm a self-chiropractor. Like I can pop any joint by just relaxing certain muscles and contracting others. And
will you do that for us today?
We'll try. We can even do that, but we can start with that one. So this will be the end of the video. And also, last thing I'll say is the sacred psoas is we're only going to be able to do about half of it because it's too much and you'll get all glossy-eyed if I keep throwing muscles at you. There's 10 muscles total, and I've recorded the whole thing. It's on my website. So if you want that, I'll set up the cards. You can have it for half. It's $100. It's $97. You can have it for half if you come to this event. If you send me a message and say, hey, I was at the event. If you want it. If not, it's not a big deal. So that's the end.